Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my movie vlog. Of course, my name is John Campea, and this special quick video here to talk about some news that just dropped within the last hour. As we all know, of course, Star Wars: The Last Jedi is on its way. It's going to be in theaters here pretty quick. I'm super excited. I'm going to see it on December 9th at the world premiere. I'm very stoked about that. And it's going to be hitting theaters shortly thereafter, so it's on its way. The anticipation level for this film is, of course, going through the roof. There has been some talk and speculation, though, about how will it do opening weekend. Some people seem to think it might do better overall than, say, The Force Awakens. Some people, like myself, question about, no doubt it'll make a ton of money. It's going to make a ton of money. But some people like me doubted that it would hit $200 million on its opening weekend. Well, the first reports are now coming out, and the initial reports are saying this. Early tracking numbers now put Star Wars: The Last Jedi indeed hitting $200 million for an opening weekend. Once again, Deadline is reporting that the early tracking numbers have now come out for Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and the early tracking numbers put the film at hitting $200 million on its opening weekend. Now, I'm actually doing this video live, and the reason I'm doing this video live is because I want this to be a bit of a discussion. I want to hear what you guys think about this whole thing, about them now saying this early on that tracking, and sometimes tracking goes up, sometimes it goes down, but this early tracking, them saying $200 million. What I want you guys to do is tweet in your thoughts, reactions, and opinion right now to me at John Campea. Tweet those thoughts, opinions, ideas, reactions to me simply at John Campea. And in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to go to those reactions you guys send, and maybe you'll see your tweet pop up here on the bottom of the screen. So let's put this in context right now. What would a $200 million opening for Star Wars: The Last Jedi represent? Well, it would become just the fourth film in all of history to open in the $200 million club. Only 3 other films in history have opened to $200 million or more. And those are Marvel's The Avengers, which opened with $207 million, Jurassic World, which opened with $208 million, just a little bit above it. And then, of course, way miles ahead of that is, of course, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, opening to $247 million. So once again, if Star Wars: The Last Jedi does indeed manage to open to $200 million or more, it becomes just the 4th film in history to do so. Will it pass the Avengers movie? Will it pass Jurassic World? Will it get into so that 2 Star Wars movies occupy those top 2 spots? Now, somebody like me, I've been saying this whole time, do not expect Star Wars: The Last Jedi to do the same business as The Force Awakens did. The Force Awakens was a perfect storm of circumstances all coming together at once with, the return of Star Wars after the dark ages of the prequels, and of course we've got Harrison Ford, there's Han Solo, there's a lot of things coming together. And I've been saying for a long time, Star Wars: The Last Jedi is going to be amazingly successful at the box office. Huge success at the box office. Just don't expect that magic of the first one back. The Last Jedi, or The Force Awakens, I should say. Don't expect the magic of that to suddenly happen again. Expect it to be huge, record-shattering, all this kind of good stuff. Just don't expect it to match The Last Jedi. These opening salvo of numbers that we see coming out now, as far as the tracking of it goes, is stating just that. It's going to be one of the most biggest opening weekends of all time, but not quite hit that magic, that $247 million number of The Force Awakens. Now let's look at that number again. Now we do have to keep in mind, and people like me need to keep in mind, that these numbers are early. These tracking numbers are early. It's saying $200 million right now, but that number could go up. That doesn't happen often, but we have seen it happen from time to time. Wonder Woman's a good example of that, although that is the rare exception, where Wonder Woman actually ended up making like 20 or 30 million more than the tracking numbers actually said. And we also got to keep in mind these are early tracking numbers. With an opening tracking number of $200 million, that $247 million number to me does seem a little bit out of reach, but it's not totally irrational to think these numbers could adjust a little bit more, especially when you're considering there might be more marketing coming to kind of whet the appetite of the audience even more. But even if it does not catch, and I've been saying this the whole time, if it does not catch The Force Awakens, which I believe is unrealistic to even consider it can do, you still have to consider Star Wars The Last Jedi, if it opens at $200 million, one of the most successful openings in history, because again, it'll only be the 4th film ever to do so. So listen, guys, I want to hear from you. I want to know what your opinions are about these early tracking numbers. Tweet to me at John Campea. Send those tweets in right now. Because, like, what do you think? Do you think these tracking numbers are overly generous? Maybe you think the number is actually going to be much lower than that. Do you think these numbers are overly conservative? Do you think as we get to, like, say, 1 week out from the release of the movie, that we're going to see these tracking numbers going up? Do you expect maybe you're one of those people who actually thinks that The Last Jedi will actually exceed Star Wars The Force Awakens at the opening weekend box office? I don't think that's possible, whatever. Do you think it's perfectly okay if it doesn't hit that number? Do you think it's a disappointment if it doesn't hit that number? Throw in your tweets right now. I'm going to open up my Twitter board here, and I'm going to see what you guys are already firing in there and saying. So let's start off with this one. This one comes to us from bgrins912, who writes, John, what circumstances could get The Last Jedi to beat The Force Awakens record? That's a great question. Because, I've been saying for a long time, it's just a different set of circumstances right now than what The Force Awakens opened in. It can't. What could? The only thing I think at this point that could put The Last Jedi, this is just my opinion, that could put The Last Jedi in a position where it could actually exceed the opening weekend box office record of The Force Awakens is a new set of trailers, maybe even just one, that shows us something that blows us all away. Because everybody's already excited for this movie. People have been loving the trailers. People are excited for Star Wars The Last Jedi. So it's not like people haven't been excited and we just got to find a way to get them excited. They're already excited. So how do we take that to the next level? I think the only thing that could do it at this point is showing us a trailer with maybe something you don't want to show in a trailer right now. Maybe, I know for me, Luke Skywalker. You know me, I want to see Luke Skywalker with that damn lightsaber open, maybe even 2 of them, beating the hell and schooling some fools. That's what I want to see. I want to see a bunch of people come up to Luke Skywalker's backyard looking to cause trouble. I want to see a bunch of people, I don't care if they're stormtroopers, I don't care if they're shock troopers, I don't care if they're just a bunch of local thugs, I don't care. I want to see a big group of idiots showing up on Luke Skywalker's lawn and saying, hey, we're here to mess with you. And then Luke pulling out the 2 lightsabers, and doing that whole thing. Of course, I will urinate myself in the theaters if that happens. It's going to be the greatest thing in the history of cinema. But it's going to take something akin to that, or I think something like that, that could change the prospect of, say, The Last Jedi to being one that could actually exceed. Because remember, I know I've brought up this number a bunch of times already, but look at the difference between number 1 and number 2. Like, the difference between number 2 and number 3 is like $1.1 million. Only $1.1 million separates Jurassic World from Marvel's The Avengers. The difference between number 2 and number 1 is almost $40 million difference. That is how, like, unbelievable the opening weekend box office was for Star Wars The Force Awakens. And again, I just think there was that extra element of magic of the first one being back, coming out of the dark ages of the prequels, all that kind of stuff. It was just a perfect storm of circumstances. So for The Last Jedi to change those circumstances, to put itself in a position to actually exceed what The Force Awakens did, it's going to take something, showing us something absolutely remarkable in another trailer that they have not done so yet. And I don't know that they'd be willing to do that. So I'm not really sure. It's a good question, though. Okay, let's see. This next one comes to us from Adoit Tall Today, says, John, I believe it will actually come in just a bit under 200 million, but it will make the $1 billion club. Oh, well, yeah, there's no doubt. I don't think there's anybody out there that has any serious doubt that Star Wars The Last Jedi will actually join the $1 billion club. The question everybody seems to have is, will it hit the $2 billion club? That's the big question. Can it hit the $2 billion club? It's going to cross the $1 billion club in its sleep. But you're actually thinking it might come in a little bit under 200 million. That's interesting. See, most people, they see the early tracking numbers and think, well, the tracking numbers will slowly start to go up as we get closer and closer to the movie, and maybe a week before. I'm expecting the week before Star Wars The Last Jedi hits theaters, I'm expecting we're going to see the tracking number probably shift all the way over to say maybe 210 or 215. So I expect that tracking number to go up. You're expecting it not to quite hit that. That's interesting. I'm glad you sent in your thoughts on that. Let's see. This one comes to us from M Spider 336 writes, John, since these early numbers are suggesting The Last Jedi will hit $200 million so far, does that mean it's a possibility it could join the $2 billion club? I think so. Yeah, I do think there's a chance that this thing hits the $2 billion club. I think we're in that sort of a range right now. Let's try this one. This one comes to us from Kavish Pandit 178 says, will it beat Jurassic World in collections of both opening and overall domestic? I believe, like I said, I think these tracking numbers, as we get closer and closer to The Last Jedi, will inch up. And I think by the time we get to opening, it's going to be in the 210 to 215. If I'm right, and there's a big possibility I'm wrong, but if I'm right, that would mean that Star Wars The Last Jedi will exceed both Avengers and Jurassic World at the box office for opening weekend and take the number 2 spot overall just behind The Force Awakens. I also believe that Star Wars The Last Jedi will have better legs than, say, Jurassic World did. I think people are going back to watch Star Wars again and again and again, me included. I think there's going to be a lot of that, and then the great word of mouth. From everything we're hearing coming out of Lucasfilm, they are thrilled with this movie. They are thrilled with what Rian Johnson did with it, as indicated by the fact that they've already agreed to sign him up to do a new trilogy of films. So clearly they're super happy. The marketing has been fabulous. I mean, there's a possibility the movie sucks. Absolutely. That's always a possibility, and Star Wars is no different. Maybe it'll suck. But I'm just saying right now, we've heard nothing but positive things coming out about it. So I've got to believe that, yes, it will beat Jurassic World opening weekend. And because I believe it's going to have better legs than Jurassic World, because not everybody was completely thrilled with Jurassic World, I got to think it's going to have better legs. So yes, I do believe it'll also beat that. I don't think, though, that it joins the $2 billion club. That's the question right now, is will Star Wars The Last Jedi hit the $2 billion club overall? I don't think it will. Right now, only 3 films in history are in that club. I don't see this one becoming the 4th, but it is possible. There is an outside chance of that. Let's see. This one comes to us from Coffee Graph, who writes, John, I think it'll be close, but slightly under 200 million, but doing massive global because of that great trailer. That's certainly one way of looking at it. Absolutely. Let's see. This one comes to us from Yoshua Solomon, who writes, John, Star Wars did an amazing Dolby Cinema demo intro at AMC theaters. Very good marketing. I agree. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, of course, you know, they're now called Dolby Cinemas at AMC Prime, which is a terribly convoluted name. It was just AMC Prime before, but now it's Dolby Cinema at AMC Prime. Anyway, in these theaters, which are my favorite theaters to watch movies in, they did this special little Dolby Cinema demo with Star Wars The Last Jedi footage. So that kind of becomes an advertisement for the Dolby theaters at AMC Prime, and it becomes an advertisement for Star Wars The Last Jedi, and it looked amazing. And you're right, it looked incredible. Visually, it's just stunning. There is no better place to watch a movie than in an AMC Prime theater. And I don't even work for AMC anymore. And I'm telling you that. But it's just an incredible experience, and you're right, that little demo they did. I don't think that demo, though, is going to make the difference between making $200 million and, say, catching The Force Awakens. That demo won't do that, but it was an exceptional demo. I really like that. This next one comes to us from 6 Point Movies, writes, John, how much of an effect will Carrie Fisher's ultimate untimely passing have on the opening weekends? Have on the opening weekend number? Surely it'll have some impact. You know, I mentioned this on, I believe I said this on Star Wars Talk Tuesday yesterday, which is, it's difficult to kind of peg that down, because I think the people who care most and who the passing of Carrie affected us, we're going to see Star Wars The Last Jedi already anyway, right? I mean, to those of us who the passing of Carrie Fisher means something to us and has significance to us, for those of us, we're already going. And I think the people who weren't planning on going to see Star Wars The Last Jedi, I don't know if the passing of Carrie Fisher will change that. But maybe, you know what, maybe I'm thinking about that all wrong, because I said that on Star Wars Talk Tuesday the other day, that I ultimately don't think the passing of Carrie Fisher is going to have too big of an impact at the box office, because I believe that most of us that means something to, we're already going. But I had a lot of you guys disagree with me on that. And a lot of you very rightly brought up the Paul Walker situation. Like, how many people, you know, were like, honestly, with all due respect, but how many people were diehard Paul Walker fans? Really, but we saw that it did have an impact on that Fast and the Furious opening weekend, that people wanted to go out and see the final performance Paul Walker gave as that character. So maybe I'm wrong about that. My thinking is still that it won't make that big of a difference because, again, those of us who care, we're already going. And it's going to mean a lot to you and me when we see her, and it's going to be very bittersweet, and it's going to be joyous to see her on screen as Leia, and it's going to be painful to see her on screen as Leia. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, to be honest with you. I got to pull it together here. But I think for some people it may not be that big of a deal, but, you know, again, a lot of you guys tweeted to me saying that you disagree and made some really good valid points, so maybe that will be a difference. Will it be the difference between a $200 million opening weekend and a $247 million opening weekend? I'm not sure, but let's wait and find out. Let's see how that turns out. Okay, this next one comes to us from Luis Lu 1969 writes, John, if they show Luke ignite his lightsaber in front of Kylo in a trailer or spot, I think it hits 250 million. I'm telling you, that would be one of those things that would change the game. If they put out another trailer and showed us something that could change the narrative, Luke standing in front of Kylo Ren looking pissed and lighting a lightsaber, that could be it. Again, I'm not sure if it's the difference between 200 million and 247 million, but that is the type of thing, which, by the way, I don't think we're going to see that confrontation. God, I want to see that confrontation, but I don't think we're going to get it. But that is one of those things, like I was describing earlier. You know, Luke taking out a bunch of faceless, no-name fools, Luke standing in front of Kylo Ren or Snoke himself and pulling out the lightsaber and lighting it up. Oh my God, I'm getting giddy just thinking about it. But that could be one of those game changers. That could be one of those things that changes the game. All right, let's go to this. Low Budget Idiots writes, John, do you think Rian Johnson's warning to avoid the marketing could have affected what they put in the trailers? Remember, a lot of people took Rian Johnson's comments on that, and they took his comments out of context. Like, because the way it's being reported, some people are saying, Rian Johnson said, don't watch the trailers. No, that's not what he said. What Rian Johnson said was, hey, I mean, the trailer's great, but if you're somebody who wants to go in totally clean and you don't want to know anything about the movie, then yeah, you should avoid the trailer. But those are two very different things. Having a guy say, hey, look, if you want to go into the movie totally clean, not knowing anything at all, then yes, avoid the trailers, is a totally different thing than a director come out saying, oh, guys, don't watch the trailer. Don't watch the trailer. They're two very, very different things. And unfortunately, the way it got reported was, Rian Johnson says, don't watch the Star Wars trailers. And that was not what he was saying. You have to get it in context. Context means everything. So I wouldn't worry about that. And I don't think it's going to affect anything too awful much. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Rick John Iowa. It says, John, not to sound like a giddy fanboy, but where do you think Infinity War will place in all this? Infinity War is irrelevant. Infinity War is a 2018 film. Star Wars The Last Jedi is a 2017 film. And so really, and it's far enough separated from it that you're not going to see any impact one way or the other, either on Star Wars or on Infinity War, either way. It's just not going to be an issue. Let's see. This one comes to us. So I was going to wrap this up soon. Star Wars Junk Shop writes, John, it'll get higher. I don't doubt it. I actually think those tracking numbers will get a little bit higher as well. Next one comes from Spartan2W, who writes, John, do you think The Last Jedi Rotten Tomato score will be higher or lower than The Force Awakens? Well, if I'm not mistaken, give me one moment here to pull this up. I believe it's in the 90s. The Force Awakens, Rotten Tomatoes. Let's check this out. Okay, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, has a Rotten Tomato rating of 93%. That's tough. Beating 93 is tough, because 93 is, I mean, close to as good as it gets, right? I don't know. I'm going to go 49% chance. I'm going to take the under. I'm going to say 49% chance that Star Wars The Last Jedi gets equal to or better of a Rotten Tomatoes critic rating than The Force Awakens did, simply because that number is ridiculously high. It's already at 93. That's a tough one to beat, man. I mean, it's a difficult one to beat. We'll have to see if anything can come close to that. Okay, let's see this one. This one comes to us from John Hood. John, do you think The Last Jedi will break records in the international market? Yes, I do. I think it'll break. It won't break all of them. Definitely not. Because again, The Force Awakens did such gangbusters business in some of them, but I believe we are going to see in some international markets, we're going to see it break some records. Let's see. This one comes to us from The Reds 1978. Writes John, will it exceed Episode 7 because of newfound expectations, such as who Snoke and Rey's parents are? I don't think that's enough. I honestly don't. I think it comes back to that core issue again. Anybody who is really interested in who Snoke is and who Rey's parents are, they already got their tickets to see The Last Jedi opening weekend. So I don't know that will have that big of an impact, because that's a core fan group issue. The people who really care about who Snoke is and who Rey's parents are, and I believe those core people are ones already going to the theater. So I think that's probably already there. Again, coming from Geek Kirk is saying, want to bring up the Carrie Fisher thing again. Carrie Fisher's last movie. Yeah, it's making over 200 million on opening weekend. I also believe it'll make over 200 million. I'm just not quite sure it hits that 247 million mark. Let's see. And let's take this last one. This last one comes from Mudda B Ahmed, who writes, John, getting to 2 billion will need massive boost from China, which might not come, as Star Wars is not that hot in China. Well, I mean, look, it's possible because The Force Awakens did. The Force Awakens hit 2 billion. So it's possible that The Last Jedi does, but I generally agree with you. I believe it's a little bit too tall of an order. It's expecting a little bit too much, especially since this isn't the first one anymore. Now we're on to the second one, and it's going to do massive business and be hugely successful, no doubt about it. But will it hit that $247 million number? I'm not so sure about that. Well, listen, guys, that will do it for this live portion of this discussion about the news that has now come out, that early tracking numbers, for those of you who are joining us just a little bit late, that early tracking numbers are saying that they're putting the opening weekend for Star Wars The Last Jedi at $200 million, making it, and this would make it, just the fourth film in film history to actually have a $200 million or higher opening weekend, which is damn impressive. But can it catch The Force Awakens at 247? I say no. Some other people say yes. We're just going to have to wait and find out. But the most important thing here is, guys, I want to know what you think. Jump into the comment section. Leave your thoughts. Do you think the tracking numbers are being generous? Do you think they're being conservative? Do you think it'll make much more? Do you think it can catch The Force Awakens? Do you think it's insignificant if it catches The Force Awakens like me? Or do you think it's very significant if it doesn't catch The Force Awakens? Jump down to the comment section and leave your thoughts there. That will do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.